Hey everyone, David MacDonald here, owner and founder of Vitality Fitness Calgary. What we're going to go over with you today are the 4 main things that you want to look at if you ever hit a plateau with your weight loss program. Now, you don't want to look at all 4 of these. These are 4 considerations that you want to take into account if you've hit a plateau with your weight loss, with your inches, maybe the scale isn't moving. Again, if you've watched our previous videos, the scale is not the be-all and the end-all, but it does give you somewhat of an indication of change. But overall, if you've hit a fat loss plateau, you haven't seen any changes with inches, your clothes, and or with the scale, then there's certain things that you want to look at to ensure that you can continue progressing. So these aren't in any particular order. We just put the 4 main things on the board that you want to consider, and we're going to go through them one by one. Now, the main thing that you want to look at initially when you've hit a plateau or you feel that you are on a plateau is you want to evaluate nutrition and compliance. Okay, so what happens a lot of the time is people tend to think that they've hit a plateau, they have to change something up. They have to add in more activity. They have to just drop their calories like crazy. They might be panicking, they think they have, a slow thyroid, or I have adrenal fatigue or something like that. But the main thing you want to do is you want to evaluate your nutrition. You also want to evaluate your compliance. Okay? What we actually notice when people hit plateaus, it's not because they're not active enough, their calories aren't at the correct level, or their thyroid isn't functioning correctly. Oftentimes what we find is the nutrition compliance is not there. What that basically means is they're just not following the parameters we've set out in their meal plan, okay? Or they're not following proper portion sizes for their activity level, their height, and their weight. So you always want to check in and make sure that you're complying with your nutrition guidelines, whatever those guidelines might be. You need to evaluate that. So there's many ways you can do that. You could work with a nutritionist. You could have, whether you're with a trainer, you come to Vitality Fitness, you could have a trainer evaluate your nutrition. The easiest way to evaluate the nutrition is to do a food log. Write down everything that you've eaten for the last maybe 3 or 4 days, and that should give you a pretty good picture where you're at. You also want to eat or write down what you've drank as well, so any kind of beverages like pop, juice, alcohol, things like that. And that's going to give you a really good snapshot of nutrition compliance, what you're actually doing in a day. Now, when you take this log, you want to make sure that you're also recording portion sizes, because you can eat healthy and you can still hit a plateau. You can eat healthy, you can still gain weight. If you're eating too much calories in healthy food, you're still going to have, weight gain. You're still going to stagnate progress. So, evaluating nutrition, evaluating compliance is very, very important, and oftentimes it's the #1 reason why people are hitting a plateau. So, food logging, writing down specific amounts. If you work, just lost my cap there, if you work with a nutritionist or a personal trainer, another good tip is maybe to take photos of your meals. That's something that we do with some of our clients. If we know that they're in a plateau and we have a feeling it's something to do with your nutrition, we might get them the food log, but then we also might get them to take photos of their meals and send them in, because that way we get a really good idea of what their portion sizes are. Sometimes what you think is a cup or what you think is 6 ounces is actually more than that. So that's where if you have someone to eyeball what your meal or what your snacks look like, then that can be a great benefit to you too. So #1, like we said, is evaluating nutrition and evaluating compliance. Okay, if you've done that, if everything checks out, your nutrition looks good, you're getting a balance between carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, you're eating enough calories, then the next thing you want to move to is increasing activity. Okay, so increasing activity by 1 to 2 sessions a week. I would look at adding in something maybe like another weight training workout, maybe a 20 to 30 minute interval cardio session. But at the end of the day, you want to increase activity in some way, shape, or form. Ideally, you want to increase weight training and or interval cardio. Okay. The other option is you could increase, something like long, slow cardio, like walking, biking, jogging, things like that. I wouldn't recommend that as the first option. In my opinion, weight training and interval cardio are the better ways to go. But at the end of the day, you want to increase activity. Now, if that means that biking, walking, running is going to motivate you to actually increase activity, if those are activities you really like to do, then doing something you like is better than not doing anything at all, or doing something that I recommend to you that you know you're not going to enjoy, you're not going to do. You're always going to be able to follow a program that you're going to enjoy. So increasing activity is the main aim here, at least by 1 to 2 sessions a week. Depending on what you're doing, those sessions might range anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. It all depends on what you're doing. Okay? The reason why we recommend increasing activity before decreasing calories is because we want to burn the fat, not starve the fat. So it's much better to keep your calories as high as you can, and that's going to really optimize metabolism. That's going to make sure that your thyroid isn't dropping. It's going to make sure your metabolic rate isn't dropping. It's going to allow you to still maintain some kind of satiation, so you're not getting hunger pains. You're not having increased hunger cues. That is going to happen as you go on in your fat loss journey, but we want to minimize that as much as we can. And we want to try to eat as much as we can while still losing weight. Okay, so that's the benefit of increased activity versus decreasing calories. Now, if you've increased your activity and you've done that for at least a good 4 to 6 weeks, and at the end of the 4 to 6 weeks, you're not really seeing a whole lot of change, that might be a sign that you might have to move down to here, which is decreasing calories. So we've increased that activity by 2 sessions, and we're noticing, okay, we're not seeing any change, no fat loss, no inches lost, nothing different with our clothes, not a whole lot of change with the scale. Then we go to decreasing calories. We're going to be decreasing calories. What I would recommend doing is starting small, starting slow, dropping your calories by about 200 to 250 a day. Keep in mind, these are generic recommendations. Okay? These aren't going to be set specific recommendations for everybody, but if we were to give you just a general rule of thumb to start with, just to get you on your way, decreasing calories by about 2 to 250 a day would be a good ballpark. So once you've done that, then you want to do that for about 4 to 6 weeks. At the end of the 4 to 6 weeks, we want to check in, we want to measure, we want to see if that's actually working. And by that point, if you're not seeing a lot of change, then one of 2 things are probably going to happen. We're either going to have to go back up to here, or maybe you're going to have to add in a little bit more activity, or, okay, and this is where working with a qualified professional is very important, whether that's a nutritionist, whether that's a trainer, then you might need to get referred out, because then we might be dealing with number 4, which is checking your thyroid, checking your body temperature, which means you might have to go and you might have to see a naturopath, you might have to go see an MD, you might have to get blood work done. Again, that's where working with someone who's very qualified and who's an expert, like a very qualified personal trainer, a very qualified nutritionist, will be able to look and give you those guidelines. Okay. Now, checking in with your thyroid function and your body temperature, these things are really going to measure whether or not your metabolism is being optimized, whether it's functioning at a healthy level, whether it's functioning at 100%. Body temperature you typically want to have at 98 degrees Fahrenheit. If your body temperature is below that, then that's indicating that something is going on. So thyroid function could very well be impaired directly or indirectly. You could be dealing with adrenal fatigue. There's something that's definitely going on though if your body temperature is below 98%. So if you're going to test anything, body temperature would be the thing, because that's going to give you just a pretty good guideline and feedback on where your metabolism is. The other thing is you might have to get blood work done to check your thyroid levels. You might have to get someone to assess that blood work, whether that's an MD or a naturopath. Now, the thing to keep in mind is with blood work, the scale in terms of what's considered normal has been expanded. So you might actually fall into a normal guideline where your thyroid levels are, but you actually might be experiencing underactive thyroid. So that's really going to depend on the level of education your doctor has, and that's where going to a naturopath to interpret those results might be a little bit better, because they're going to be able to give you a better idea of whether you're underactive, even though you might fall into a normal range. So these are the 4 things you want to consider if you're hitting a weight loss plateau. The other things you want to always consider when you're making changes is you always want to look at your energy level, okay, where your energy level is, whether or not you're gaining strength with your workouts gradually, whether or not your fitness is increasing, how full you feel throughout the day. Are you feeling satisfied? These are very important markers to look at, okay, before we ever consider making changes, okay? The other thing that isn't on the board, it's something that you might want to consider as well, is you actually might be under eating as well. That's something that we can see. We see that more often with female clients than male clients. You actually might be under eating. That could be contributing to a plateau. Okay? More often than not though, it's probably going to be one of these things, and more likely it's probably going to come down to evaluating your nutrition and compliance, increasing activity, or decreasing calories, okay? But again, you want to look at these 4 things. You want to start with evaluating nutrition and compliance. Once you've done that, everything checks out, you want to move up to increasing activity. After increasing activity, you want to move down to decreasing calories, and then you want to evaluate at each step. And if none of those things are really working, then you might want to consider getting the thyroid checked and checking your body temperature to see if there's anything going on with metabolism. So, those are the 4 things you want to consider whenever you've hit a plateau. I'm David MacDonald from Vitality Fitness Calgary. Thank you for watching.